evening, and thank you for being here. We have a big crowd today, so that's exciting. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of March 16th, 2026. This meeting has been duly posted in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20. The public are welcome to attend in person, thank you very much, or online. Please note that if the in-person meeting, it will not be suspended or terminated if there's technological problems. And for people here, please be advised that the meeting will be audio and video recorded for future rebroadcast by Norfolk Community Television. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I didn't introduce. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I should have said that I am joined here by my colleagues Thais Hickman and Kevin Roach, our town administrator, Mr. Rob Garrity, and Ms. Amanda Johans, who works with us. And I don't know your title.
Executive Assistant.
Executive Assistant, thank you very much. I had a little brain fart there. So we usually start our meeting with public comment, in which case people are welcome to come up and talk for up to 3 minutes about issues that concern the town. Does anybody have public comment at this time? No public comment, none online?
No, they can, if you want to raise your hand if you want to make a public comment.
Yes, please come on up to the microphone and say your name and address.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
John Bowman, 44 Lakeshore Drive in Norfolk. Before you this evening in the capacity of Chair of the Norfolk Democratic Town Committee. Back in January of this year, we received a letter from the Select Board soliciting nominees for the role of Register of Voters. That request was put before our town committee, and we have 3 people who put their names forward. 2 of those 3 folks are here this evening, Paula Green being one, Joanne Kelly being the second. Both of these folks are committed to free and fair elections. Both of them are well-educated, have had fantastic careers, and will provide the support, if needed, to our town clerk in the event there's a recount. Our town clerk has high standards. As a resident of Norfolk, I'm grateful for Carol and her staff. I'm grateful that we have two folks here who are actively pursuing the role. Regardless of whomever you select this evening, I believe the town of Norfolk will be well served. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Already going on to number 2, introduction of a new assistant town clerk. Carol, you want to come up?
I won't take a seat, but as you guys know, we have a new assistant town clerk. Our last assistant left to move to Florida. Certainly miss her, but I'd like to introduce you and all the millions watching to Susan Walsh. She's our town's new assistant town clerk, and if anybody needs anything, she'll be trained and ready to go. It's been 2 weeks, and she's ready to take over for me, so.
Awesome.
Say that.
Welcome.
Well, thank you
We're
very
pleased
much.
to have you here. Thank you so much.
I'm enjoying it already. Carol's been great so far, and I look forward to serving the town and serving the people.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I've had the privilege of meeting you already downstairs, and we're excited.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Number 3, Mr. Town Administrator.
So we, now is the time when we do appointments for the Board of Registrars. You have 1 seat open. As Mr. Bowman indicated, per the statute, we asked both of the town committees for nominations for this position. There is currently no organized Republican town committee, so we didn't receive any recommendations there. This would be continuing the balance of the board with 2 Democrats, 1 Republican, and our unenrolled town clerk. And John we have 3 candidates, 2 of which are here.
Awesome. So,
Hear from them?
yes, I think we should. So, I can see Paula. So Paula, would you want to come up and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you interested in the position?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Nice to see you all. Thank you very much for inviting me here to speak. My name is Paula Green. I'm at 42 Wildwood Road in Norfolk. I moved here 3 years ago this April. I retired my professional position in the Greater Worcester area where I worked in strategic communications and PR for well over 40 years. And I didn't do well with retirement, so now I'm working as an adjunct professor at Dean College. I've always been very involved in community activism and also just being on many boards of community nonprofits when I lived in the Greater Worcester area. And when I retired and came to Norfolk, I had some things that I wanted to do. My oldest daughter went to Dean College, and it was a lifesaver for her, so I wanted to find a way to give back, and I was fortunate that they had an adjunct professor position open in communications, and I was offered that opportunity. The other thing was I wanted to get involved in the Norfolk Town Democratic Committee. I had a chance to meet John Bowman and others. John sort of turned that whole town committee around, and I've been active in it since I've been in Norfolk, and I serve as the clerk. This opportunity was presented to me last year and again this year. I feel more confident in coming forward this year to seek that position. I think fair elections is of the utmost importance. I've always worked for the common good. Most of my jobs have been in nonprofit. I've been chair of YMCA of Central Mass. I was involved in a lot of other organizations in that area, and this is an opportunity for me to get involved in where I'm living now. I moved to the area to be close to family, and I'd like to make Norfolk my hometown. So thank you. If you have any questions?
Any questions?
No.
I think you've answered everything, Paula. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Joanne, do you want to come forward?
Hello, my name is Joanne Kelly. I'm a new resident of Norfolk. We've been here, I guess, almost 2 years, 16 Brookside Lane. I've had the pleasure also of meeting John Bowman and getting involved in the Democratic Town Council, and it's been a real eye-opener for me of what's going on in Norfolk, and a really good way to be part of the community. As you may know, when you move to a new community and you don't have children or grandchildren that live in the town, it's really hard to, other than your neighbors, get to know people. So I'm really pleased that I made this decision. My background is academia. I was at the University of New Hampshire after graduate school. I stayed and worked at the business school. I was an administrator, and I taught in the Department of Management. So my background was academia for 25 plus years. My husband and I then moved to Philadelphia. We were in healthcare at the time and started a company there. And that's really where I got involved with a lot of board service that I did, community service, campaigns that I worked on. My one position there was to help people who worked in healthcare to further their education. So we had a lot of minority people that worked for us and didn't have opportunities to go to college, and that was one of my goals, was to help them navigate through the college system. So that's what we did. We moved back to New England. Yes, I think we're the only people who retired and moved north. Our friends still don't understand that. But I have a son and daughter-in-law who live in Westwood, and they have 5 children. So we decided that was going to be a good opportunity to come and help our family. So that's pretty much my background. Also feel very strongly about fair elections. I've had the opportunity at the university to also work as my position required me to certify students for graduation. So I was a bit of a nitpicker, as you can imagine, because my signature depended on people getting their degrees. So I felt very strongly that it's very important to take seriously anything that affects people and their ability to either graduate from college or submit their votes. So I thought that that would be important to bring up as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any
Any
questions?
questions?
No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. So,
And Liz is not here.
and who else?
Elizabeth suggested
Liz,
she's
oh, Liz is not here. So last year, we were in a similar situation as I feel like we find ourselves this evening with strong candidates where it's really difficult to make a decision between them. And so last year, one of the criteria we said was that if you weren't here, we didn't consider you because it just made it easier because the candidates were all so strong. So I would suggest that since Liz is not here, that we would just consider the two people who are before us.
I'm on board with that.
Do you have any thoughts? Any thoughts?
No, I'm in agreement with
Oh,
that. I
so
think
the thing-
all three of the candidates are great candidates.
All three are amazing, I agree, and all three would do well by Norfolk. The only thing that jumped out to me in listening is that Paula applied last year, and we accepted somebody, so this is our second year trying, so I would be inclined to that versus rock, paper, scissors, because we have two such strong candidates. I would choose Paula, I think, just because it's her second time, and I'd like to give her that opportunity. And then encourage Joanne to apply again, because we're thrilled to have you come forward and thrilled to have your name.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yes.
All right. So, I can't say enough how exciting it is to have such qualified candidates, and your willingness to serve your community is amazing, and I know that Carol will appreciate the partnership. So I'm very pleased to have a choice and conflicted by the choice because we have two such strong candidates.
Yeah, and you're also both new to town, which is nice, just to have people who are motivated to help build the community who haven't been here that long. So we hope that you continue to stay active, and I echo Anita's sentiments. I think both of you are excellent candidates for the role, and it's a difficult choice.
A super difficult choice. So I would accept a motion to appoint Paula Green to the Board of Registrars with a term expiration of March 31st, 2029.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. We're pleased to have you in Norfolk.
Yes.
Number 4.
So we need to appoint an inspector of animals. This position, the incumbent to this position did not seek reappointment. Fortunately, Kelly Ward, who was essentially the assistant position, has stepped forward and is amenable to being appointed to the position. This position is not the animal control officer. It's someone who does other tasks involved with state reporting, checking on animals and their state and condition.
Awesome.
Also the bond inspector?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
And it is not a full-time position.
No, it is a stipend position, very part-time.
Very, very part-time for the millions of people who are watching. Do you have any questions? No. Any questions? So I don't have any questions either. Thank you for finding a strong candidate for us. I know she served as a sub in the past. I would accept a motion to appoint Kelly Ward as the Inspector of Animals with a term expiration of April 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kelly, and welcome. Project update number 5, Mr. Town Administrator.
So, Mr. McCarthy, did you want to introduce the Southwood team, the GFI discussing the Southwood?
Put him on the spot.
He's like, not really.
We have the project team working on the Southwood redevelopment project here. They wanted to give us an update.
So I will introduce William Buckley from GFI Partners, and then he'll bring his team up to
Very good.
you, and then he can introduce.
Yes, please join us. Yes. Welcome.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Hello.
I'm excited to have you back.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
we're
so
excited to be here, we are. And So should I just cue you if we want to switch the slide? Okay, great. Well, Madam Chair, members of the board, town manager, town administrator, Garrity, and members of the public, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, to come back here tonight in front of the select board. I want to introduce our team in attendance tonight. To my right is Gina Gulseth, who is a project manager from SLR International. That is the environmental firm that's preparing most of the technical data on our project. Matt Norton, who is the principal of DDES, who is our radiological consultant working on the project, as well as Denise Matzo, right, who is our environmental risk assessor on the project, right, which all comes into to the report we're going to share with you tonight. We are here to provide an update on the status of the project. Tonight's presentation is going to focus primarily on the work that took place in 2025, which is most of the environmental assessment work that is necessary to continue to advance the project, right? And we continue to make significant progress on that. As most of you are aware, the site has been vacant for 20 years. There's been contamination that's existed on that site for long before that time. It was, as many of you may recall, there was a zoning change at town meeting in November of 2024 that really opened the door for a whole new level of investment into the site to allow us to really dig in on. The findings that we're going to share with you tonight are well over $1 billion worth of assessment to identify what the cleanup activities are in there. So, I just want to express our appreciation for that. Let's switch to the next slide. And our project tactical team, which I introduced Matt from DDES as our radiological consultant. Field investigation work, since we've owned the project, has been done by Envirotrack, which is an environmental services company. Recent work, and I was actually remiss in introducing GFI's Director of Environmental Science, the former LSP on the project. Robert Bird has also joined us, and he wanted to stay back, I guess. Anyway, but Bob was the LSP for Envirotrack when some of the preliminary assessment work was completed. In 2025, actually, and started in 2024, with the assistance of the town of Norfolk. The town's allowed us to access targeted brownfields assessment funding from EPA. So EPA had hired a group called Nobis Group, and they did a lot of the assessment work that ended up in our Phase 2 comprehensive site assessment. And then now SLR will remain with the project team through the environmental cleanup. Our ecological part of the Phase 2 comprehensive site assessment was an ecological risk. Tetra Tech performed those services on behalf of U.S. EPA for us, and the human health risk assessment was Collaborative Risk Solutions, who's here tonight. I want to give special thanks, since that's our thank you slide. So special thanks to the town of Norfolk, as I said, for making the Brownfields Assessment Grant money available to us. Also, of course, for all of the support that the town showed to the rezoning of the project, whether that be the select board, the advisory board at the time, our planning board and our planning staff have it's been really a collaborative effort between all parties involved to move this project forward. US EPA and Jim Byrne was great throughout this Phase 2 investigation work last year, and their consultant, the Nobis Group. It's been a great group to work with, and I think it goes without saying how much we appreciate and want to offer special thanks to our local PIP group, right?
Yes,
The town of Norfolk has a very active, very talented, and bring a level of expertise to this project that's, it's almost like having, a second consulting team on it. So, I say that, we do really appreciate their efforts. They've been of assistance to us and truly collaborative in our continued efforts, and we see them continuing to add value to the work that we're trying to do here. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Gina, who, we're taking a whole lot of work and trying to condense it into a handful of slides and hopefully be able to leave some opportunity for some questions and answers or any specifics. And we can always follow up with more information if you have more question.
I'm just super excited by that number 2.
Number
Phase 2.
2. Right.
Phase 2.
Phase 2, yeah.
It's not phase 1, we are in phase 1,
Yeah.
we are in phase 2. It's
Phase
very
2,
exciting.
it really is. And then as we get through, we'll get through these slides, and then I inserted some slides too, just for those that may not be familiar with kind of the conceptual development
Excellent.
work that we worked on at the zoning change. I'll just share some of those slides as well.
All right. Like Bill said, a lot of work has been done historically and especially in the last year, and we will try to condense that down into a quick presentation. And really what I'm trying to do here is give you the story of how we started with a hospital that ended up where it is now and where we go from here. To start with, it's a phase 2 comprehensive site assessment. And the purpose of a phase 2 is to collect data so that you can develop that story, understand what's going on, know the nature and extent of contamination, and figure out what we can do to remediate the site and go from there. We look at that in terms of risk. Denise did the human health risk assessment. You look at ecological receptors, and we're trying to get to a situation and a condition of what we call no significant risk, so that when they develop the site, we can be sure that people can be there and there's not going to be a risk of harm. Our scope of work for this phase 2 was to compile the historical results. Matt did a couple of radiological surveys. We did 47 soil borings, 13 monitoring wells, 42 sediment samples, 12 surface water samples, did some geophysical work, test pit excavation, and a fun thing called a Targhost laser-induced fluorescence, which takes a look at free-phase petroleum in the soil there. So clearly a big scope of work was accomplished in just a couple of years here. And our results defined the nature and extent of contamination across 8 separate areas of concern at the property. We call those AOCs. So I'm trying to make sure I don't use terms that you don't understand. Let me know if you don't. So ready for the next one, please. So how we tell our story is through conceptual site models. And that conceptual site model is a story of how the contamination got into the ground, where it is currently, how it moved to that location, the mechanisms that help it get there, and where we think it might move into the future, and the receptors that it might come in contact with. We had a couple key points when we were looking at the overall conceptual site model or story for this site. We had each AOC or area of concern represented a discrete historical release, except for AOCs 2 and 7, which were from the same release, which we'll talk about. And then the key point number 2 is that site conditions, the geology in the area where the hospital buildings had been developed historically, that area, the geology limits the migration of contamination from that area, which was really helpful and led to, I think, surprisingly less contamination than we anticipated to see, given the historical. Next slide, please. So this slide basically gives you an idea of the plethora of soil and groundwater and sediment and surface water samples that have been collected around this site from the original, was it 1995 Wadley borings all the way up through current 2025. And you'll see there the 8 areas of concern that we talked about, and then on the bottom right we say exactly what those areas of concern are. The 2 that are probably used, that we'll probably talk about most here, are AOC 5, which is the wastewater treatment plant filter beds. Those are the yellow squares kind of down there, yep. And then AOC 6, which is the former waste disposal area, which is right there. Now, those two are important because that's where the majority of waste historically would have been disposed from the facility, and that's where we would expect to see contamination. So you'll see that there's a lot of samples focused on that area. Next slide, please. We did develop different stories for the primary contaminants of concern at our site, and one of those was what Matt was looking at, which is the model for radium. It was brought to the site in 1927 for the cancer treatment research, and as you know, hospital wastewater was discharged from the hospital into those wastewater treatment filter beds. Often the beds would clog with leaves, and they would scoop those out, and they'd put them on the side. And the top layer of sand and debris would be removed and deposited adjacent. And Matt's assessment evaluated through screening and some analytical testing that there was impacts radiologically to the shallow soils in AOC 5, and that approximately 1,000 cubic yards of radium-impacted soil was present above the guideline levels that they established through their technical methods. We also developed a story conceptual site model for PFAS. PFAS is per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, those that are interested. And they're called the forever chemicals. They're really kind of up and coming, if you will. We were looking for those PFAS impacts that would be seen as a result of the hospital's use. And as I said, AOC 5 and AOC 6, the former waste treatment, former waste disposal area, would be where we would expect to see those impacts. So we've really kind of focused on those areas with the scope of work. We didn't find PFAS above the standards in soil samples in AOC 6, which is in the former waste treatment disposal area, which led us to believe that we would see it there if it was going to be a significant source of contamination to, what goes downstream of that. We didn't see a whole lot of that. We also didn't see it in soil or groundwater in AOC 5, right, which is another place where we would have seen discharges happen. So we did see PFAS in groundwater throughout the site. The standard for the state is 20 nanograms per liter. The highest concentration we saw is 40. We have seen sites, I've personally seen sites that have it up around 2,000, 3,000 nanograms per liter. So we're talking about things that aren't extremely high here. And those results led us to believe that there isn't a significant source of PFAS contamination that occurred from historical operations on the site, but that there is some contamination PFAS above standards, but it could be also associated with some regional conditions because it's a pretty ubiquitous set of compounds and contamination. Next slide, please. We know that the source of that El Napple was the historical release of fuel oil from tanks that were used to heat the hospital historically. In AOC 1, and that movement, the movement of that material was likely, it's a very thick viscous material, and we know that its movement into its present condition was likely a result of the fact that there were steam lines that historically heated the hospital, and that allowed it to be less viscous and allowed it to move. But our assessment showed that there really hasn't been a change in the extent since about 2002 when they did a significant amount of study, and our new study showed pretty consistent. And that's likely due to the fact that there's no longer that heat source there, and it kind of keeps everything locked in place because it is very, very viscous and slow to move. Again, movement restricted by those conditions that we find up at the hospital, the geology and whatnot. And the fact that number 6 fuel oil, which is the contaminant, isn't very soluble in water. We didn't find any significant groundwater contamination associated with it.
Is there a minimum or, I guess, a safe level for this particular substance, or?
Well, for the risk assessment, we did not assess exposure to the El Napple, and the reason being is there's a lot of understanding for how contamination in soil or groundwater can, for example, cross your skin barrier. When you get into this viscous material, if you think about like a cream or something, how that's different than, say, water or soil. Mm-hmm. So for the risk assessment, what we did is we assumed that the exposure would be eliminated for the exposure to the Napple. That's a pretty common way of managing in managing the risk to this material because it is less certain, the sort of safe levels.
So by eliminated, meaning you dig it up and drive it away?
It depends. Often it's simply if it's in the subsurface, if it's at the surface, sometimes that's what you would do. If it's in the subsurface and there's either a covering, whether it's a kind of a capping, so it can be clean soil, it can be a building, it can be pavement. So basically it's either isolating it from contact or removal. Those are
Thank you.
the two ways normally.
Yeah, and in this case, for the LNAPL, there is a standard like there is PFAS, right? It's LNAPL is composed of a bunch of different compounds, and each one of them individually has a standard, but they don't have a specific standard for LNAPL because it can constitute a lot of different things. So we look at it from a term of risk, right? And does the compound or the mixture as a whole provide a risk? And like Denise is talking about, we deal with limiting the contact through an activity and use limitation, which is something we'll look at in the next phase, which is phase 3.
But we did look at the petroleum compounds in soil. So when you have this separate phase, that's very concentrated, right? But it can also sort of be present at lower concentrations in soil or in groundwater, and we did look at those risks. And those do have standards associated with it.
Just to sort of interrupt for the millions of people watching, the hospital site was a groundbreaking site actually in Massachusetts for the treatment of cancer, right? So they did some really groundbreaking, exciting things that Norfolk should be proud of, but the site was then left fairly radically contaminated, and we've had other, the reason I'm excited about this group is we've had other groups come forward and test the soil and then leave, and then other groups, or they don't partner very nicely with our PIP group, right? And they're threatened by that engagement. And so we've had several not very successful ventures, and so I'm very excited to see this move from 1 to 2, and to even hear talk of 3 is exciting for Norfolk, exciting for our PIP group, and so just to give people some history, I'm not just some crazy. We've had town meeting presentations, you've seen them, that are very exciting, and then they never come to be, and so.
That is very typical of really, contaminated historical sites.
Because it's a complex site.
Yeah, it's
very,
complex,
very complex.
Absolutely, and obviously, 30 years of data will, indicate that.
Thank you for letting me interrupt.
No worries. Next slide, please. So this is the extent of LNAPL that those investigations through 2002, you can see a little bit more sporadic in the distancing between where the points on the map say that they looked for data. And then if you click to the next slide, that yellow outline shows that aside from it going under the building, it really looks pretty similar, right? There hasn't been a huge expansion, and this really helped us say a key component that the state wants to see is that LNAPL is stable, that it's not migrating, that it doesn't have a risk of going somewhere else. And since 2002, it doesn't really look like this has moved. We've refined its extent, but it really, and it hasn't gone down deeper either because of the geology. So next slide, please. So we took all that data and we went to the risk assessment stage, and we looked at 2 potential major receptor groups, and one is environmental risks, and that's the grasshoppers and the worms, obviously, that we see here. And Tetra Tech is the company that completed the stage 2 environmental risk characterization. They focused on the wetland area and the intermittent stream that runs down the site, and that's AOC 3. And the reason they focused on that was because historical investigations indicated there was no ecological risk associated with other areas of the site because there's limited receptors. They evaluated the survival and growth of organisms by taking sediment and soil samples and doing the things that they do in the black box, and results came out. And those results concluded that overall impacts to the benthic community are not biologically significant, which means contamination at the site doesn't pose a risk to ecological receptors. And then Denise did her work on the human health risk characterization, and she started by identifying hazards. Contamination in soil, groundwater, and sediment were considered. Possible exposures, she looked at trespasser, construction worker, resident, all those possible people that could be impacted. And toxicity, Mass DEP has specific tox factors, chlorinated solvent is worse than a petroleum compound, right? It interacts with us differently. She quantified those risks and compared them to the established limits. As she talking about the LNAPL, she assumed that there's going to be limits on future use, such as preventing exposures to the LNAPL through one manner or another, and to the waste in the former waste disposal area. And the proposed future development that Bill has in mind will incorporate these assumptions. The results showed there was no unacceptable risk under the current use, but there would be unacceptable risks for exposure to lead in AOC 4, which is up by the buildings, and AOC 6 in the former waste disposal area under possible future use scenarios, and to PFAS and thallium under future drinking water scenarios. At the site, the water is not used for drinking. We don't anticipate it will be in the future, but Denise is required to look at that. And those possible future use scenarios show that there could be a risk. So those are things we need to think about as we go forward to that phase 3. The risks for radiological contamination were evaluated separately by Matt through development of those guidance levels. All right, next slide, please. And what we came out with was 3 data gaps. We had a data gap for the extent of PFAS. We did do, think of it in terms of a really big, big area, and we were putting points kind of, they're about that wide around, and we're sticking them, 60, 90, 200, or 100 feet down in the ground. And that's one data point. So to try and extrapolate all of that from just those, far space points, we do understand that there is maybe a data gap associated with understanding the nature and extent and possibly the source of PFAS. So that's something we're going to discuss with Mass DEP and how they're dealing with that in some of their other sites, because the concentrations really aren't that high. And there may be some additional groundwater sampling rounds and future assessment of potential receptor impacts. Data gap 2 is the extent of radium in the filter beds, and this was something that the PIP, really had a lot of comments on, which we are definitely evaluating.
Absolutely.
And very valid comments as well. So we are looking at additional assessment of those data gaps, actually probably during the remediation, because I think the money is better spent. We know we're going to that money will be better spent looking at it during the remediation phase than just continue to do more assessment and do the same thing we would have done.
Yeah. Can I interrupt you for a second, Gina? Because I just want, and that was a good point. This data gap was not shown in our original draft report, so we're likely going to add it into. So the phase 2 report got submitted to DEP, PIP Group, and others as a draft, right? And then it became open to comment with PIP Group. We got a lot of comments back from the PIP Group. So now we're going to incorporate some or all of them into what will become the final phase 2 comprehensive site assessment. And with this data gap, I would like Matt, I don't want to put you right on the spot, but talk a little bit about in a lot of comprehensive site assessments, you really try to quantify the extent, both horizontal and vertical, of contamination. And a lot of times, and I'm speaking over my head a little bit now because I'm not the environmental scientist here, but a lot of times those samples, during cleanup, those samples need to get sent out to a laboratory, confirm what the status of the site is, right? So you want to know exactly where all that is, so while you're doing the work, you can continue to do the work and make sure you get all of it. Radium, the remediation of radium on the site is a little different in that, so I don't understand.
It's different. We've got a lot of experience with radium actually in Massachusetts and doing these type of cleanup operations. We participated in Chelsea Clock. We manufactured radium clocks for 100 years. We did a removal action that was adjacent to the high school and did that very successfully. And now that's a full-blown development that is 325 condos that are in that location. But what we've done over the years is we've used technology for our side in that instead of having to send these samples off to a laboratory and wait for 30 days to get the sample back, we have an on-site screening laboratory which does gamma spec almost to the quality of a fixed laboratory. So we can go out into the field and we can tell you when to stop digging. So basically, we're taking live samples, we're getting that information in, that information is then going into the actual removal action. So that's the first phase of that. When we get to what we believe is clean soil, now we do sampling of the excavation itself, and that goes off to a physical laboratory for actual decision-making and risk assessment use. So once we do that and get that information back, then that entire survey unit, you can think of it as one of these filter beds, then undergoes a statistical test where we put in locations in a very systematic manner in which we put a triangular grid down and we take 17 samples within those, and we send all those off to our fixed base laboratory and we make decisions based on that. We also do lifetime scanning using an instrument that we pass over the soils so that we can look for elevated counts. So we're looking for localized hotspots. So it's this combination of using this type of approach that is going to be successful at making this remediation possible. And I don't know how much of you know about these particular filter beds, but where they're at is very challenging because there is significant growth in between each one of these filter bed berms. So if you take a look at the assessment reports, you see smaller units of survey units. Once we're in there and we're able to start this removal action, we'll be able to evaluate those areas because they can be grubbed clean, and we can link those data gaps, if you will, in between those survey units.
So a conscious decision was made to say, because we're going to be able to do so much work in the field during that cleanup, let's invest that money in actually the disposal work. So we've estimated an amount of soil. We know there's radium there. We know that that can't stay there. It needs to be excavated and disposed and transported of properly, which is likely on a rail car heading somewhere far west. So we know that needs to be done, and it's now just being smart about how we continue to make that investment in that cleanup work. So, and we're going to, the downside to that, I guess, to that approach is that we're going to need to chase this until we're done. Right, so we have estimates right now that's 1,000 cubic yards of soil. If it turns out that that's 2,500 cubic yards of soil, then that's 2,500 cubic yards of soil, right? That's the way it works out, and we're confident though that Matt has estimated that properly.
So you said that the data gap number 2 wasn't shared, it wasn't in the original document, so is the PIP group aware of data gap number 2 and the information you're sharing right now?
So what we didn't share with them is this progressive approach that we always plan to move forward with actual removal action. So we didn't see it as a data gap. We knew it as this is where we're going to proceed to do that. Yeah. We did not clearly communicate it to the PIP group that this was our given approach.
But we're going to include that in there so that it's
nice and clear for everyone. We'll put that same language.
That will be really important. Thank you.
I just have one question about the groundwater, the PFAS in the groundwater. It says may be related to regional conditions. Can you just please explain what you mean by regional conditions and why that would be a cause?
Yeah, so there are lots of different processes that PFAS was a byproduct of, right? And PFAS in particular, compared to a lot of the other compounds and chemicals that we've dealt with in the past, it can be an airborne contaminant, right? So it can come out of a smokestack and be blown across and deposited into soils. It can be released through wastewater. It can be, brought in. It can be contained in soils. I have a site where it's in the wastewater that goes into the leaching beds, and it kind of comes out that way. So, and it's a group of about 6,000 plus compounds that they've identified at this time. So there's so many different ways in which it moves. Some of it moves, really far afield. Some of it stays close. There's just so many different physical and kind of properties that it has, that there is likely, there's likely to be other sources in the area of this site. It could be anything from a nearby leach field that on a private property. It could be historical releases from any of the nearby industrial facilities, either through air or through discharges of wastewater. And a lot of those things, the way that water moves underground, they tend to, things disperse and kind of move out, and they tend to kind of spread out. So it's sometimes really hard to identify exactly where something comes from, and it could be a lot of different sources that kind of all commingle together. So that's a difficult
And the
problem.
reason that's shown as a data gap is because we still need to prove that, right? It says it may be subject to regional conditions, and there is some evidence that, there's some evidence that it needs to be, but it's a data gap because we need to prove that, right? And if it turns out that it's something other than regional conditions, then it needs to, our approach to that needs to change. But we're, and this isn't like just being tricky with words here, but we're saying it may be related to regional conditions, it may not be as well. But we believe that it is. We need to do some additional testing. We want to have some additional conversations with it. PFAS is kind of an evolving issue with Mass DEP and how communities address it and how developers and others address it. So, we have some more work to do in this area, right? But we want to make sure that we don't want that to hold up our progress in other areas of the site.
Yeah, and one of the assumptions in the phase 2 is that even though we think this might be the case, we're going to continue to address it in the future response actions as though it was attributable to the site until we can prove otherwise.
Thank you. You said something that was new learning for me, so I just want to say it back to make sure. So PFAS is like a generic term for 6,000 plus different.
Plus different
So it's
compounds,
not, I always thought PFAS was, but it's a generic term for these forever chemicals, and there's 6,000. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so the state of I was going to say New Hampshire, because that's where I'm from. The state of Massachusetts regulates only 6 of those compounds. And so that 20 nanogram per liter criteria is a sum of those 6 that they regulate. So they take the concentrations and sum those.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. They said something about there's no risk of contamination of the current use of the property. Is the property being used as anything right now?
We looked at trespassers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we looked at surface soils, exposure to surface soils, and then the sediments.
So that
along-
trespassers won't get harmed going on the property, right?
I know.
Which actually is good.
Not from touching anything, right? The buildings are falling down. We got to get those buildings down.
But it's not the contaminants in soil that's a concern.
So that's just the use of the property, it's just trespassing.
Trespassers and dog walkers. We get a lot of dog walkers there. It's an attractive.
Yeah, and the reason we look at trespassers as well is that encompasses actually youth. So when we look at a trespasser, it's sort of this 11 to 17, 18-year-old. And so that's protective of an adult, but youth have a higher exposure potential.
Yep.
I don't need to go down the reasons why, but it's the reason we look at a trespasser is it's sort of a sensitive receptor for when you have a property that is.
I must say, though, they do have a pretty good camera system, and they do, the police go down there quite a bit for trespassers. They seem to catch them on camera quite a bit, and...
We do.
They're not known for their good decision-making, so putting
Right.
stuff in their mouth, right?
Yes, and the thing with risk assessment, the type of risk assessment, is we can get very, what we call site-specific.
Yep.
I did not do that here. I used Mass DEP's default assumptions for a trespasser and other receptors. And that's, we did that because it's on the protective, right? It's on the very protective end.
Yeah.
It's all the default assumptions at this, but it really does overestimate. It's like 2 times a week for years. You're in there eating the dirt.
Okay. I was just, where it said current use, I was just not sure what that was.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then our third data gap is there was a hot spot, just an area where there was significantly higher concentrations of lead that we found in a depth, I think it was 16...
About 10 feet down, 10 to 16 feet.
10 to
yeah.
16 feet in the former waste disposal area. So one of the things that we've done since we submitted the draft phase 2 is we went in and did some additional investigative work and collected samples around that area to try and further define whether it was a more lateral area, problem, or was it very specific? And our data showed that it was relatively confined, right?
Yeah.
And Denise is working on using that information to further define the risks, and that's our goal is to eliminate that data gap prior to issuing the final phase 2, and I think we're probably going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think we will. I think you guys found the hottest sample the first time around because we went all around it, and it's still elevated.
Yeah, we did 9 borings within a
various
25-foot
depths,
area at various depths, so we really
No, we have
where
much
that
higher
is.
confidence now in the concentrations in that area.
Next slide. Remaining activities, we're going to do the Phase 2. We did, the PIP public comment period was extended to March 11th. We got those comments last week. We are going through them, and we've already, as a group, discussed and made some changes to how we're going to put things together based on those. And we should look at getting the final Phase 2 assessment. We're shooting for the end of May on that. And then at this point, we're looking for Phase 3, which is our remedial action plan. That's the step in the state regulations where we look at possible remedial actions. We're going to keep them separate by those AOCs. We're going to look at, some soil excavation, maybe some isolation of various things, maybe like the LNAPL and how those can be integrated with the debris development that's going to happen.
We got a lead hotspot that needs to get removed,
Yep.
right?
In AOC 4.
In AOC 4.
Yep, AOC 4. Radiological contamination, we're going to deal with that, and then we need to figure out what we're going to do with PFAS and groundwater. And then Phase 4, this is the next phase. We're hoping to, really get Phase 3 kind of done and moving. Recommended alternatives. We'll put together an engineering detail of how we're going to implement those alternatives or those remedies, and we're going to put Phase 4 into in conjunction with the redevelopment, and work everything together.
We're working on a new schedule to send to DEP that will go with in advance of our final Phase 2. So we're saying that we're proposing a schedule of having Phase 3 finished before the end of this calendar year, which we're actually going to try to do. We're putting that in as kind of a safe deadline for us, and we want to do that earlier because that Phase 3 report is we want to be submitting in conjunction with our redevelopment plans to the planning board, right, for site plan approval. So we're holding off on that because we think we want to make sure that we understand what the cleanup requirements are and be sure that our proposed project is compatible with that. Indications are that that they can work together and coincide, and so we want to at least maybe not have a final Phase 3, but at least have those following some parallel paths, right? So that there's confidence of the planning board that they're looking at a project that doesn't jeopardize any cleanup, and that can be that they can work together, as we've said we wanted to do all along. So.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I inserted some slides for the redevelopment, just for those that may not. Did I? Yeah, right.
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Okay, good. So these are just a quick sampling of some of the slides that we presented, both to the select board, to the advisory board, to the planning board, all part of our request for zoning amendment back in November. So this is 111 Dedham Street. Next slide. And just a little bit about the project. So, and I didn't update this slide from that November, so some of this might be a little dated. We participated throughout with the town, with the planning department, on the reuse and zoning analysis for the site that took place, and participated in, I know some of those findings were incorporated into the new master plan. Our proposed project is we want to demolish that existing blighted hospital and everything around it, the underground steam chambers. I mean, it's just a full demolition, and really get rid of this long-standing public nuisance. Our proposed project, and we'll see it better on the next slide after I run through these bullets, is just about 545,000 square foot, multi-tenant, Class A industrial park project. And the site itself is 96 acres, right? So there's the proposed industrial park portion of the project will be on a 74-acre portion of that site. And the project, and we just had a meeting in the office today because we are starting to advance those site plans, those engineering plans, to see how the site is going to work. We think it's going to be a mix of light industrial, light manufacturing, some office, some storage, some warehouse uses. We think it's likely multi-tenanted. There are also two additional kind of out parcels, what we're calling Commercial Lot B, which is in that lower left corner there. That's a 4-acre commercial lot that abuts the Walpole recreation area there. And then a larger parcel is Lot C, which is actually 18 acres in size. That we can do something lower down on kind of in the on 111 Dedham, on Dedham Street there.
Is that about where the waste facility is?
So the waste facility
On C, upper left-hand corner of it?
is right here.
Yep.
Yeah. So the development probably wouldn't extend. This gets really steep slopes in here. So,
Yeah.
the redevelopment, the development area for this lower parcel is kind of in that block there.
So I can't imagine you're going to remove the waste site facility. That's going to be, what, capped and...
It's likely, right. So we'll have extensive discussions with DEP and others on that, I'm sure. And the good news has been that our findings there have been, well, I shouldn't talk like I know what they were. They were
relatively insignificant considering what, the historical use of the property was. And, there's a lot of sampling that's been done, and...
Yeah. And then we've also as part of the rezoning analysis, we committed to a minimum of 15 acres of open space, which is primarily a lot of the wetlands and some of the steep slopes up along that abut, bring us down to like Valley Street and abut that part of town. Next slide, please, Amanda. That gives you, ideally how the industrial portion of the project is intended to look. Same, we just saw that a little over 540,000 square feet. You can see that we're breaking up the building into multi-uses. There will be loading behind all buildings and parking for employees and visitors in between, trying to create a bit of an industrial park-like setting. In the next two slides, there's how we would envision the entrance off of 111 Dedham Street, and the next one's just an internal picture of the site. So that it gives you that's really a quick overview of the direction that the project is heading, and that's it. Not as quick as be for you, but there's a lot to cover.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Now, the select board is 3-year terms. I was just wondering how many terms do I have to be before the ribbon comes?
That was going to be my question.
Well, it could, we're looking, ideally, we would be, close to an approved project by, potentially by the end of this calendar year. Now, when that actually starts construction is, to be determined. We got to get the buildings down. I know I've had conversations with, with police and fire department. I know that, they want those down. We want them down. Those cameras, we get notified every time one of those cameras go off too. And so it's, it's still a moving target, but there are steps. We have to follow the steps, and and that's what we're doing.
In terms of phase 3, the remediation.
So phase 3 is really the design, the selection of the design the selection of the design.
Phase 2.5. Remediation. Is that like a moving target, or do you have like a kind of rough idea of how long that might take, or is it just based on what you find when you start, digging and?
Yeah, it's likely going to be done in conjunction with construction. So, and it's not. It probably won't slow construction. That'll be part of the site work in building what would be the redevelopment plan. So, it's. They'll be done together.
Yeah, things like the excavation and removal of the radiological contamination could be done when they're doing demolition of the buildings, right? How they sequence and phase so that they work at the same time and it doesn't slow down anything that's going on from a development perspective. Okay.
And some of the stuff like the
LNAPL,
that's probably going to be in place with an AUL, making sure that it doesn't get pierced and moved around, that kind of thing?
I would say at this point, that's really the direction we're heading. We have a little bit more of evaluation to do to make sure it truly is stable and that we don't find anything unexpected. But at this point, that assessment suggests, I'm going to say that carefully, the assessment to date suggests that that's going to be a path we can
And there's
take.
likely, just the way, with the grading on the site, there's likely, so that's, there's likely another 10 feet of depth that gets added above
The current ground
the current
Right,
grade.
you're doing a lot of regrading there.
Right, yeah.
So
The
it'll be
site
much steeper.
gets a lot steeper towards the Walpole line than you see from the eye.
And the cleanup is somewhat predicated on what the uses are. So if it was a residential use, it'd be a very different cleanup.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So my only comment would be, I appreciate your partnership with our PIP group, and they are our local experts in this, so please
Really
keep that partnership going, and thank you for staying with us, and we're excited to see this to the end, so.
Great.
However many terms it takes. Thank you. We're grateful for your expertise and your tenacity, so
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy to be
There was
here.
also a comment online from Karen Riley that they appreciate your efforts and the overall cleanup, and thank you for your work.
And she's in the PIP group.
Yes.
Yep,
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
thank you.
Okay.
That takes us to number 6.
Mr. McCarthy. So Rich is going to give a brief update on the shared use path grant that we got from Medway Branch.
Good evening, thank you.
Good evening.
I think you already received the letter from MassDOT that
Yep.
we were awarded Phase 1 for the shared use path, which goes from Barnstable to Tucker Road. The planning board had previously committed to pay for the design, engineering, and permitting for Phase 1 from Barnstable to Tucker Road. We, as the past few months have gone along, we submitted for Phase 2, which was from Tucker Road to Boardman Street. So essentially, we have an application in for Phase 2, which would be from Barnstable to Boardman Street. So having chosen the path to submit for Phase 1 and 2, applied to Mass Trails back in February for the design, engineering, and permitting. There is a match component to that. The match component would be that the planning board has already committed to provide money towards that project. That grant application is for $175,000. The first award that we got for Phase 1, I believe is December of 2027, the project needs to be completed, if I remember correctly from the letter. Engineering design is a little bit of work, but there isn't any reason to think that that can't be done and constructed and completed by December of 2027. We haven't, as I mentioned, so we're waiting on that Mass Trails grant. We'll give it a little bit of time to see if we're able to get that before. If we're able to do that, then obviously, then we don't need to use off-site mitigation, which could be essentially applied to something else down the road. So that's a pretty exciting. So that actually will provide essentially sidewalk provisions from in front of the senior center to town center. I don't think I didn't do the all phases of Medway Branch, or did I? I can't recall now. I'm trying to remember. Essentially,
I don't think so.
No.
Not in a very long time.
no, it's been time, but the big picture is to take it from literally here at the commuter rail station all the way out to Dean Street. That's kind of the broader vision over time. I met with the Community Preservation Committee about, Phase 1 and 2, and said, probably a strong chance if we're successful, I'll be back before you to look at going beyond
DPW property out towards Dean Street. So that's something that's down the road, which, with all this up front, certainly makes us more attractive for other grants. So we'll be taking a look at that. But pretty excited. At least I'm excited. I think from the Council on Aging, they're excited to hear about this. I know there are concerns from some of the residents who live on Medway Branch. Some of those concerns we'll kind of flush those out during the design phase. We're getting the survey done and, marking out where the actual layout is for Medway Branch, which is considerable because it's a former railroad right-of-way. So what people may think is there's, once those survey stakes go out, we'll see. But so we'll have to, we'll address those things that come up in terms of grading and setbacks. But
you would think the residents would like sidewalks. It should be less cars if the sidewalks are people are walking.
I would think so. I think the one, what I did hear from people who were not as jazzed about it is the fact that it's 10 feet wide as opposed to just a standard, I call standard, although sidewalk sizes, I will tell you, are increasing. I think the one we have out there right now is 4 feet. That's kind of a relic in terms of sidewalks. They are working to change the standard so that they become wider. So there was some detraction in that. However, I heard from residents as well that they do appreciate the width because it's more comfortable in terms of people walking and moving. It's not like, see people walking 3 abreast that you can still keep up a conversation, not have to move to the side. So having a little more space, there's a lot of advantages, as well as some of the families that live in the area. They talked about that, having this available to them, again, provides a nice community asset to be able to walk and bike and so forth. So there's always pluses and minuses, I think, with anything, but we're pretty excited about that.
Thank you. Any questions? Questions?
Yes. So when would the construction start on this project? In phase 1?
We probably, I know I'm kind of hedging a little bit on that Mass Trails grant for the construction. I think, say safe, we would just plan it for a spring of 27, just to work back. If we can move it in, we'll definitely move it in, but just to be.
And you can finish that phase of the project by December.
It's not a long construction project. The other advantage in terms of, I think, is by submitting the grant, we would potentially have, someone out there doing site inspections, observation while the construction is going. Our previous proposal was really potentially going to rely on DPW to help us out. I know they're nearby, but as you know, they're pretty well stretched out and short-staffed, so that's a...
So this is going to actually have a bike lane on the sidewalk, correct?
It'll be the Medway branch, then it'll be separated. There'll be a separation, probably at least 2 feet. How the material type hasn't been chosen yet. One thing that's under consideration is actually put a vertical granite curb, so it provides a little bit of a barrier, a little disincentive to kind of sway outside so that's one of the things that we're going to be taking a look at, and that'll be 10 feet. So I didn't bring up.
So it could be used as biking or?
Yeah, biking.
Or walking.
Or walking.
Okay.
That's being shared.
Yes, that's okay. But that's going to confuse people. You got a half a mile of sidewalk you can ride on, and the rest of the town you can't, but.
No, you would have to shift, yeah. No, I know. Now, if we're fortunate and we get phase 2, we can start right from Boardman Street all the way through, just continuous. That's why we moved it up.
Yeah.
Hopefully. The other thing was Complete Streets changed the dollar amount too last fall. So now the dollar limit has gone up a little bit too. So previous to when we submitted for the phase 1, it was a $500,000 cap. So we had to kind of squish everything into that cap. So we'll keep, I think from the public, just in general, shared use paths are
huge
assets, more competitive, I'll call it, in terms of when I say competitive, more fundable. And so that's, but also too, so anyway, that was the
Excellent.
path we chose.
And we're not paying for $500,000 of it, which is very exciting.
No, that's right, exactly.
That's $500,000 of free money
Yeah,
is.
so if we get the grant, we could be all in, not paying anything in terms of municipal, except for, my time towards the project, so.
That's exciting. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for your energies to make that happen.
Yes.
It's something I was trying to work on when I first got here 9 years ago. It kind of slipped down the list and it's come back up, so I'm excited about it.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
You mean Southwood will happen?
Most people are hoping for that, right? From the revenue standpoint, no.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm working on that a while too, so I'm
But also
excited to-
just to get it cleaned up. Like,
Yeah.
the revenue's exciting, but we also just want that site cleaned up.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. We're moving to number 7?
Yep. So Rich has been meeting with our friends in Rentham, and we have an opportunity to share a conservation agent with Rentham. And Rich and I have both met with folks over there, and it's moved along. Rich, did you want to give a kind of update on what this will mean?
Sure. Well, we did talk about a little bit at the budget meeting at the Freeman Kennedy School. So in terms of from the conservation agent position, what it will do by combining both communities together, it will be a 40-hour position. As you know, the position previously was 31 hours. So consequently, 31 hours, didn't really garner the salary to makes it as competitive to attract somebody. So by partnering with Rentham, we felt the feeling is that, and by the way, Rentham's agent's going to be retiring too, so that's kind of why all the stars have lined up in that regard. So hopefully it makes us more competitive in terms of finding somebody who is interested in this field that we'd be sharing. We share already, so it's kind of something that we do. I think we've done well, and so we're excited about that. So the general objective for tonight is kind of get your yes, that you support it, so we can tell our colleagues over in Rentham that, yeah, it's got support here, so then we can kind of keep going through the progression stages with the process. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. So thoughts?
I think a shared use would be very to a benefit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have any information on what this role does. Can you just give a high-level overview?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of that position, they would be dealing with the permitting for projects that come before the Conservation Commission as it relates to the Wetland Protection Act and also our local bylaw. Somebody who would have an environmental background, be able to do project assessment, go out field inspection, look at wetlands, resources. It'd be awesome if we get another person like we had before. So our previous agent was a licensed soil evaluator. So that really was I don't know if we can get that, but anyway, that is another layer that helps us in terms of evaluating wetland resource areas. So they would work with the public, obviously, applicants in terms of permitting projects, whether there would be requests for determination, which residents oftentimes are before the commission for requests for determination. So you're adding a deck, it might be a resource area, so that agent would be able to help them through the permitting process, as well as deal with developers that might have a larger project. But it's really covering that aspect of our department. Right now, I'm kind of pinching in at the moment.
Yeah.
Which it's okay. But the other advantage I will tell you is that having the agent is that when the projects are smaller in scale, when you have that professional, you're providing that service to the public. So, and I only know this because in the situation, our previous agent was out on maternity leave. Mm-hmm. So we had a couple of residents that had some projects that were a little more complicated, which really would have required a third-party review of the project for them, which one of them was on Mirror Lake, and they literally said, you know what, we'll just hold off because it was upwards like, almost like $4,000. We're having that professional on staff to be able to provide, they can do that. That's part of their job. So we had another one that it just got finished with the commission last meeting, similar. They're like, oh, we want to wait till she comes back. So they'll help with that. And also questions, can I do this? Can I do that? It's not, there are the regulations, but it's not black and white per se, and what things, how they apply. So that person would be doing that work. It's going to be, because it's going to be 20 hours, it really is going to be more focused on the work of the commission in terms of the permitting.
Yeah.
Depending on workload, they might be able to expand in some of the larger, like longer range things, but we'll see how that kind of goes. And see what kind of candidate we can attract if they're, can handle multiple things and get the job done, then we can hopefully do some of those things. But
Okay, so we'll get 20 hours and Rentham will get 20 hours
Yeah.
split. Okay. Awesome.
And what we've done, is similar to, so we have the Board of Health agent that we share to the Metacomet Public Health Alliance. We manage it so, sometimes something might be pressing, we can kind of be a little bit more fluid too. So we kind of build that into it well. So it's worked pretty well.
Excellent. I think it's a great model.
Yeah.
It's a money saving for the town, but also brings us a higher level candidate. I think it's a great model.
That's the being able to we a person at 40 that we probably couldn't get it at 20 or 30 is pretty important.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then our budget goes down this year.
Yeah, we love that.
7.
So you're looking for an unofficial stamp of approval from this board?
So we didn't post a vote.
No, so you didn't post a vote. All right, well, so maybe just follow up.
But I have sensed a general agreement that I can continue to talk to Rentham.
Absolutely.
And we'll get an
Absolutely.
IMA, an intermunicipal agreement together.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. Number 8.
So it's Memorial Day Parade time again. We need to do the annual vote to hold the parade.
Excellent. Any questions?
No.
Questions?
No.
I'd accept a motion for the, to authorize road closures for the route of Norfolk's Memorial Day Parade, as well as the use of Town Hill for the ceremony on Monday, May 25th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, number 9.
As in years past, the Federated Church would like to use Town Hill for their Easter 8 a.m. service.
Any questions?
No.
They've always been good stewards of our hill, so I would accept a motion to approve the use of Town Hill for the Federated Church's annual Easter service at 8 a.m. on Sunday, April 5th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And baseball and softball opening day is upon us, so we need to do a vote to approve their parade from HOD to Freeman Kennedy.
Excellent. Any questions?
No.
Questions? All right, I would accept a motion to approve the road event for the annual baseball and softball opening day parade at 10 a.m. on Saturday, April 25th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Number 11.
So a couple of meetings ago, you approved the Southeastern Regional Services Group contracts for materials. This is a contract for services, various kinds of services. What you'll actually vote here, the way we've started to do this, is to allow the town administrator to enter into these contracts on behalf of the town. They are from March to the following February. I don't know why they're not on the fiscal year. That's interesting, but not relevant.
Any questions or concerns?
No.
Questions or concerns? I would accept a motion to approve the surge contracts for the DPW services contract for March 1st, 2026 through February 28th, 2027, as printed in the agenda for this meeting, and to authorize the town administrator to execute the documents.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Budget process.
I wanted to put this on to do kind of a wrap-up of the Saturday, March 7th budget event we did at Freeman Kennedy. First, I wanted to thank you folks and the volunteers on the advisory committee for spending 4 hours of your Saturday morning listening to the department heads, who have also like to thank for taking 4 hours of their Saturday to talk about the proposed budget this year. The video of it is up on NCTV, so the millions watching can find that. It is about 3 and change hours, covering everything, all the regular town departments, with the exclusion of the school, who had not, as of that time, had their budget fixed. They did have their public hearing later on the next week. As you recall, the staff we started the budget year with considering the revenue picture, the spending that we built, the services that we provide. We started with about a $2 million deficit. That seems like an enormous number, but remember, $1 million of that is the free cash we used last year to balance the budget. Now, free cash, I know it's a little bit radioactive, but I was thinking about it this morning again. Free cash is not purely one-time revenue you found by the side of the road. It's the product of 2 things. One is growth that hasn't hit your regular tax rate, so it comes in its first year, and that's part of your free cash revenue. And the second part is stewardship. It's not spending the entire budget, finding economies mid-year, things changing, positions going open. So it's not as if, you rooted through the couch cushions to get free cash. It's partially good growth. It's partially really efficient stewardship of your budget. So that being said, we come into this year after spending some free cash already in the fall town meeting, come into this budget season with about $2 million worth of free cash. Now, you don't want to spend all of that to close a budget deficit. So Todd, the finance director, who's unable to be here tonight, is at a training in Western Mass, took our budget recommendation and pared the deficit down by about 14% with some strategic nips and tucks that we think we can do with minimal service impacts. There will be service impacts, but they will be contained, which got about a $1.8 million budget deficit. Again, $2 million in free cash. You can cover that, but we have a snow and ice deficit we know about. We know it's at least $500,000 at this point. And it would be preferable to have some form of capital program this year. We will have probably some water department capital because they have a dedicated fund to be able to do that, but we have other needs in town too. So staff recommended at that point that we look at using a debt exclusion to take the tri-county money, which this year's assessment is $377,000. Last year it was over $400,000, and that was covered, as you may recall, through stabilization fund transfers, which later we took free cash and put back into the savings account. And that was never intended to be a long-term solution to the problem. I recall at the time the board talking about needing to see how the tri-county number ended up coming out. And fortunately, we're in a situation where some old King Philip debt is rolling off. We've paid off the last of some old King Philip bonds, which actually in this past year were over $400,000. So we can add the $377,000 in tri-county to the tax rate through a debt exclusion. So it's only around as long as that tri-county expense is there, and not create an impact for the taxpayer. It essentially replaces the King Philip debt. And if you do that, you get into the neighborhood of $1.4 million worth of a deficit. We looked at further reductions, and I think staff strongly believes that further reductions will start to create service impacts that, in our opinion, would need a longer time frame to discuss with the community. So you're starting to talk about schools. You're starting to talk about police and fire. You're starting to talk about town hall impacts. Not being able to provide the services we serve. The library. Would the library stay open the way it is now? So to us, we viewed it as being able to bridge this year with the available free cash, doing the debt exclusion, getting us to a position next year where we can have a longer conversation with the community on priorities. What are folks comfortable with? What do we expect out of our community? And how do we pay for that? So that's what Saturday was all about. I felt very supported by the board, by both boards. Having sat on both boards at one point or another, this is the first time I'd seen, I know there had been one in the past, but I wasn't on either of the boards at the time. I think it was a great example, and I think it's something we should do as a regular part of our budget in the beginning of the process. So perhaps in the fall, and throw the school committee into that process as well, and do a joint meeting where we all come to terms with, okay, this is what this year looks like, and let's go off and, go forward. So thank you again for your weekends. I thank the staff. I got 0 complaints from anyone. Nobody complained to spend their time, and a lot of them, as you stayed there and watched practically the whole thing. So it was really very rewarding.
Excellent.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. I thought it went very well. It was nice to hear from all the department heads. It was nice that, members of the public got to see how the sausage is made. So if you haven't watched it, feel free to.
It is interesting.
Tune in and hear from our department heads. But yeah, I thought it was well run, and I thought it worked out well.
Thanks.
I agree. I was excited about the model. I went to the advisory board meeting and visited with them. They're also excited about the model, and they felt like the collaboration between the two boards was really effective, and we're in a better place already because of the joint work. Just for the people who are watching who don't understand about Tri-County, the Tri-County is an agricultural high school. No, it's not the agriculture. Vocational. Thank you. I knew that was wrong as soon as it was out of my mouth. Vocational high school, and they're building a new building. And because we're one of the communities that feeds into that, the monies that we're talking about as Tri-County monies are toward the building of that building. So that is a short-term expense for us, but it's a significant expense. So we're talking about having the debt exclusion.
Yes.
I didn't want to say the wrong word.
Yes.
So, if there's any other discussion, I think we need to do 2 motions. One is we need to move to put the Tri-County money on the ballot, and just sort of move that we agree that it should go on the ballot. It would go on the May 5th ballot. And then the second motion would be the specific wording of how that would go. If everybody's comfortable with that, I'll move forward with that.
Yes.
Now, is that okay? Have we covered? So I would accept a motion to place the debt exclusion question on the ballot of the May 5th, 2026 town election concerning debt associated with the building of the Tri-County Regional Technical School District High School.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then this is the more technical one. I would accept a motion that the ballot question concerning the debt exclusion be written as follows. Shall the town of Norfolk be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay its allocable share of the bonds issued by the Tri-County Regional Technical School District for the purpose, single purpose, of paying costs of designing, constructing, originally equipping, and furnishing a new district high school to be located at 147 Pond Street in Franklin, Massachusetts, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto. And we have to do a roll call vote, is that correct? Is that why it says yes or no?
Oh, no, that's for the ballot question.
Yes or no? Oh, so it'll say a yes or a no on the ballot question. Thank you very much.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And I'd also just like to inform everyone, this is not about whether we're approving the money. The money already got approved. This is how we pay for it.
Yes, we are.
If this doesn't pass, that means it has to come out of the operational budget next year and moving forward, so.
Excellent. And to Kevin's point, which is an excellent point, it was approved by you. So it went out to vote, and the town of Norfolk voted to support this project. So it wasn't approved by this board single-handedly.
Right.
The town voted on it and said, yes, this is important. It is going to be a very exciting building for our young people who go there, and so it's a real asset for our community. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
And one other clarification, as Rob mentioned, because the KP debt is rolling off of the books, there will be no additional tax increase. Is that correct?
Attached to this, yeah. Yep.
As a result of it.
Assessment. Because this debt is actually a little bit less than
Yes.
the KP debt was. So although it is a debt exclusion, we won't see it on our tax bills.
Now, if it did pass, how much of a savings would they save?
If it,
Didn't pass the debt exclusion.
If it did or didn't.
If it didn't pass, how much, I want to,
KP rolls
Oh, I see what you're
Right.
saying.
so, ooh.
We asked Todd.
Okay.
Do we need?
So I don't want to give a number, but I think it's in the single digits per month.
right, so it'd be a pretty small amount, so that's what I was trying to say. If people decided not to vote it for debt exclusion, they'd be saving less than $10 a month, or a very small number.
Yes, it is a small number.
Yep.
And coincidentally, we have these two projects, one comes off, they're not related to each other, but one comes off, one comes on, so there's, we're excited because it's a minimal or negative impact for our taxpayers.
And just a caveat, that number is different depending on the value of your house because
Yes.
it's, over
Yep.
1,000, but.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Town administrator updates.
So my update was the budget update. That's what we've been living with day in, day out. So that's what I have for you.
Awesome. Select board updates? Select board updates? I don't have any select board updates either. So I would accept a motion to approve the warrants for the period of March 3rd, 2026 through March 10th, 2026 as printed on the agenda for this meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then the minutes?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 28th, 2026 and February 9th, 2026.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. And are we to a motion to adjourn? I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Let's make sure everyone heard me.
Yeah.